What is going on, New York Giants fans? D. Illa here. I wanted to come out and talk about our third round draft pick, Jalen High out of Tennessee. I'm extremely happy that we were able to get Jalen High in the third round, man. A lot of people thought that Jalen High was going to go within the first 2 rounds, and somehow he fell to us in the third round. And we were able to get our corner with our first round draft pick, and we were able to get our much needed center in the second round. I've heard a lot of comparisons when it comes to Jalen Hyatt. I think the one comparison that I've really liked as far as a player goes that had some success in the NFL was Mike Williams from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. Mike Williams played for the Steelers, went on to play for the Baltimore Ravens, had a couple of successful years there with them, but obviously was not as nearly as successful as he was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Hyatt, man, he gives us that wide receiver that we definitely need on this team. And I was a guy that was banging the table for Dalton Kincaid just because, yes, he was a tight end. I felt as though he was more than a tight end. I thought he could do a lot more than what a tight end can actually bring you out there on the field. I thought he ran routes similar to a wide receiver, and I just thought his overall ability as a player super exceeded, a lot of players that were on the board at that point in time, including, our first round pick, Deontay Banks. But I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me about that. I was listening to Diggy and Kid Blue, and I forgot the other guy's name. They were three, those three were actually, they put together a little podcast, and I was listening to it, and they were talking about how if we knew we were going to get Jalen Hyatt in the third round, would we have traded up for Gonzalez? And honestly, in my personal opinion, I thought that would have been a great move if obviously we could have looked into the future and saw that we were going to get Jalen Hyatt in the third round. Because with Gonzalez, to me, man, you could see his physicality. You could see his great hands. You could see his ability to cover. Now, I only have the resources here on YouTube when it comes to Deontay Banks, but I don't really see this physicality out of this player that a lot of people see. I saw times where the ball was on his side of the field and he was being washed out by the blocker. Now, more times than not, that does happen to cornerbacks. They get matched up against guys that are bigger than them. They just get, they get washed out, and they're not necessarily able to make the tackle. And then with him on backside pursuit, especially with Deontay Banks, his backside pursuit is extremely lackluster and just kind of lazy, in my opinion. Like if he was on the left side of the field and there was a ball carrier on the right side of the field, and he saw there was 2 or 3 defenders over there, like he's just kind of jogging along, not going over and helping his teammates, just in case, most likely it's not going to happen, just in case that ball carrier makes it through 2 to 3 of those defenders, which 9 times out of 10 doesn't happen, but at least he's put himself in position to help back them up. And I didn't see that a lot out of him. And there was one play against Michigan where he came down into the box and he was right on the outside of the line. If you were on the defensive side of the ball, you would have been on the right side. I mean, the team actually stacked the box. I mean, they had all the defenders down there. And as soon as that running back got the ball, cut to the left, I mean, that running back just broke up the field, right up the left side. And that 4.3 speed that man had didn't help him out there because he wasn't able to track him down. The ball carrier just ran right by him. And there was no chance for Devonte Banks to actually, Deontay Banks to actually catch him. I mean, those are the things that I saw out of him, which make me very weary of the pick. And I saw things that, especially when he came down, a lot of people say he's a press corner. I mean, I saw wide receivers, time and time again, they were able to get by him. It's not like he was able to just jam him up right there at the line. And I think, what's his face? I watch a lot of different people here on YouTube. What's the guy? The guy's name is Bobby. Does a lot of offensive line videos. Just looks at players like that as far as offensive line. He's really good at actually sitting down and looking at offensive linemen and being able to predict if they're able to translate to the NFL. Talking Giants, yeah, Bobby from Talking Giants. And I thought the way he looked at Deontay Banks was probably the best overall judgment over anything I've seen on YouTube when it comes to him. I thought he gave a very fair assessment when it came to Deontay Banks, and it wasn't so, biased just because he's a Giants fan. But, yeah, I still don't see it with Deontay Banks. Maybe people out there can actually point me in the right direction when it comes to his good film so I can see the physicality out of the kid, especially when it comes to tackling, because the videos that I've seen, man, I think I've seen the man make 2 tackles out of all the videos that I've seen, and that's it. And he didn't have the ball thrown his way very often. That's a good sign within itself. That is a good sign. But his hands, he has trouble tracking the ball from what I understand. 2 interceptions his whole entire career. With Gonzalez, man, you saw he had the hands, saw he had the coverage ability, saw the physicality out of the man. But, yeah, I still think Kincaid was a better pick. And I'm telling you right now, if there's anybody out there that wants to put some money on Dalton Kincaid being an all-pro before Deontay Banks, I'll take that bet all day long. Take that bet all day long. Because I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be an absolute monster in this league. Just the way he can move as a tight end. But, yeah, going back to what I was talking about with Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt, like I said, the best comparison I've heard was Mike Williams from the Steelers. I've heard other people say Ted Ginn Jr. Ted Ginn Jr. was a smaller wide receiver, extremely fast. Ted Ginn Jr. was kind of like in the mold of like a thinner Santana Moss almost. But guys that I think about, now obviously Jalen Hyatt hasn't played in the NFL yet, hasn't actually come out and done a thing at this point. I mean, he reminds me of guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling with better hands, obviously, because Valdes-Scantling can fly down the field. A guy like Rasheed Shaheed from the New Orleans Saints. If you play fantasy, keep your eye out for Rasheed Shaheed. Because, I mean, the Saints really didn't do much to actually add to their wide receiver core. Yes, Michael Thomas is still there, but Mike Thomas hadn't done anything in the past, 3 seasons at this point. And, he could definitely be a very good option. A lot of people are going to point towards A.T. Perry, who was drafted in the 5th round, but he's had drop issues. And, I don't think he's much of a threat to Rasheed Shaheed. I think Shaheed and Chris Olave are going to be their 2 main options in that passing game. But, yeah, he reminds me of Shaheed. Traquan Thornton, Will Fuller. He reminds me of Will Fuller a lot. And I think there are very strong comparisons between him and this player. He reminds me of a bigger version of Jameson Williams. That's exactly who he reminds me of. And if you think about the things that all these players have that are similarities, they all have trouble running routes. That's the thing. They can fly down the field. They can get open deep all day long. But the big question with all these wide receivers is, can they run the full route tree? And can they get open on intermediate routes, shorter routes, and beat that cornerback's coverage right off the line? Can they do that? But that's the question that's remaining to be seen with Jalen Hyatt. Obviously, he hasn't stepped on the field yet. I've got a lot of hopes. I got big hopes for Jalen Hyatt, man. I expect big things out of the kid. I'm extremely excited that we got him in the 3rd round. He gives us that much needed pass catcher that this team that this team desperately needed. And he's a different dimension type player. I mean, he's different from what we have considering we have Shep, Wan'Dale Robinson, Paris Campbell, all those guys, man, they are very similar with what they're bringing to the table for this offense. But now we have a guy that's got a little bit of size to him. Obviously frame-wise, he's not necessarily the biggest guy in the world, but he's got some height to him. He's obviously like a step down from Isaiah Hodgins, who's 6'3". But Hyatt's pushing close to 6'1". I think they have him listed at 6, but he may be 6'1". I don't know. But he's gonna catch a lot of deep passes for this team. Maybe you might not see it come to fruition this year, but for years to come, I think he's gonna develop into something very, very special. And obviously, all the players that I just named, I think he has a higher upside than all those players. Hopefully he can turn into a player that was way better than Will Fuller. Obviously, Will Fuller, basically screwed his whole entire career by, his PED use. But yeah, I wanted to come out and make that video. I hear a lot of comparisons for Jalen Hyatt, and I just wanted to come out and throw out some names for you guys to see what you think about it. I know it's a lot of different names that people haven't said out there. When people make comparisons, they always want to bring up these well-known players and talk about guys that have already made a career in the NFL and have already done tremendous things in this league. But when I think about a guy that hasn't come in the league and done something yet, I try to compare him to players that are basically in the same position as him at this point in time. So that's it for the video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit long. Something else I wanted to talk about, man. I get so tired of hearing people come out here and toot their horn about stuff. It's like, man, look, there's a lot of New York Giants content creators out here. And a lot of these creators come out and they make 4 to 5 videos a week, okay? And then they want to come out and toot their horns and be like, well, I said this and I said that. Well, fool, when you make 3 to 4 videos, almost 5 videos a week, you're going to say a lot of stuff, aren't you? You're going to say a lot of stuff. You're going to be bound to hit on one of those things that you said because you've covered just about everything under the sun. So if you're not hitting on stuff, you must not be doing anything right at all. And you should probably just retire and cut it out when it comes to making any kind of football content.